Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening for the fifth installment of our Synergy Speaker Series hosted by Persistence PAC. Before we bring out our guests, we're going to go through some housekeeping real quick just before we kick things off. Just so you know that no attendees will have their video or audio on at any point during the guest speaker portion of the program. If you're having difficulties connecting, try closing out all of your other tabs. And if you continue having problems, you can contact our tech support via phone or text. The phone number for that is 256 384 5543. Now, we will not be accepting any questions during the talk, but we will be allowing some time afterwards at the end of the talk for Representative England to answer some questions. Tonight, we will be providing an opportunity for you to pose your questions to Representative England directly. So if you're interested, first submit your questions through the Q&A box on your screen below. Then we will call on you, ask you to unmute yourself, and then you will be able to ask Representative England whatever your question is. Now, if you plan on asking a question this evening, please make sure that you have the most updated version of Zoom. If you have an older version, it may not allow you the option to speak. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Persistence PAC, we are both a state and federal PAC based here in North Alabama, with the mission of increasing the number of high-quality candidates who adhere to democratic values at all levels of government across Alabama and beyond. And all of our board members are dedicated volunteers, so every donated dollar that Persistence PAC receives goes directly towards furthering our mission. And in 2018, we raised and gave $87,000 to state candidates. In 2019, our annual Monster Mash Halloween party raised almost $30,000 for Senator Doug Jones's reelection campaign. And this year, we have already contributed to Democratic candidates in 5 competitive state races, Senate races across the country. And although the speaker series is a free event, if you have the means to do so, we strongly encourage you to donate tonight to help Democrats in Alabama. Your donation, no matter the size, will make an impact in the upcoming election. There will be a donation link pinned to the top of the chat box below. If you feel moved to contribute whatever you can, and any and all of our donations are greatly appreciated. We also have merchandise available for you to purchase, where the donations for that also go to supporting Democrats across the state, and there will be a link for that also located in the chat box. And now to introduce our speaker for the evening. Representative Christopher J. England was born and raised in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He received his BA in English and BA in Political Science from Howard University in 1999, and then graduated with his JD from the University of Alabama School of Law in 2002. After graduating from law school, he went to work for the Tuscaloosa County District Attorney's Office as an assistant district attorney. In 2004, he left the district attorney's office to begin working in the office of the city attorney for the city of Tuscaloosa, where he currently serves as an associate city attorney. Representative England was first elected to the Alabama House of Representatives in November of 2006 at the age of 29. He is serving his 4th term and currently serves on the House Judiciary, Insurance, and Public Safety and Homeland Security Committees in the Alabama Legislature, as well as the caucus chair of the Alabama House Democratic Caucus. He is also the current vice president of the Alabama Law Institute. And on November 2nd, 2019, Representative England was elected to serve as the chair of the Alabama Democratic Party, becoming the first African American to hold the position in Alabama history. And last but certainly not least, he is married to Shay, and they had 3 beautiful children, Kennedy, Autumn, and CJ. Hi, Representative England. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hi. All right. Thank you for having me. First, it's a pleasure to be here, and I know that everybody has plans tonight, and I'm pulling you all away from the Republican National Convention, and I apologize for that. Sometimes it may not be informative, but I know it is, for me at least, it has been quite entertaining. But anyway, first, thank you, Lisa, for that introduction. And also thank you to Persistence PAC for having me. This has been quite a journey from November 2nd up until this point. So I guess I'll just kind of start and give you just like a really brief rundown of where we started and where we are. When we were elected, and I say we, me and Patricia Todd, who, by the way, is the first LGBTQ member who's to serve as vice chair in Alabama history. So when we made history that day, we really made history that day. We also added 30 to 40 members under the age of 35. We created new caucuses, and we really diversified the party. The party now looks like, feels like Alabama, not only in appearance, but also in the fussing and the fighting. So I am proud to say that our new party is active and engaged, and we are working towards November, not just November 2020, but also November 2022, when we begin working on that Republican supermajority. So when we walked into the office on November the 2nd, as you know, we had about a week left before that election cycle began and ended with qualifying at the end of that week. So paperwork had to be done. And thankfully, many Democrats from across the state went to the state headquarters in Montgomery and joined in and helped us get members, people who were applying to run for office, and help them get qualified. Once they did that, we had some issues in transition, paperwork getting done, and we may or may not have had someone show up at the headquarters with a gun. Maybe not. Who knows? But since that day, we went to the office, got everybody qualified, and collected the money, and also collected all the paperwork, got everything certified, and turned into John Merrill, Secretary of State, to make sure all our candidates were certified and ready to go. We also had to make sure that we had some challenges that we had to overcome. Some candidates were challenging others' qualifications, and we handled that as well. We were also tasked with the responsibility of going through the office, and we found unopened mail for years that went back 2 or 3 years, some of which were uncashed checks, and we totaled well into $50,000 to $60,000 worth of uncashed checks that we had to go through. Some had to be refunded, some couldn't be, but we ended up going through those, figuring out what we could do with those, and getting those disposed of as quickly as we could. Now, keep in mind, at this point, we only had one person paid on staff, so everybody that came into the office and helped in that effort were all volunteers. And I really want to say also that volunteer effort has continued to this day. We still have volunteers that help us with several things, including coordinating with county parties, helping us with our social media, and many other things, to be honest with you. And interestingly enough, when January hit, we also had to turn our attention to the convention, because there hadn't been any fundraising or planning for the convention. And if you are like me, in January, we were all planning on being in Milwaukee in the summer to celebrate, whoever our nominee was going to be, who our vice presidential nominee was going to be, and exposing the country to the vision the Democratic Party had for our country. And then the hoax hit, depending on who you listen to. And the coronavirus changed everything. So in the middle of that, we had to make the transition from having meetings to plan where our delegates were going to be elected, and we were going to select a delegation chair and have meetings throughout the summer to accomplish those objectives. Everything immediately had to go from actual physical meetings to conducting business through emails and phone calls. So essentially, we did that, working closely with the DNC. We found the rules. The DNC gave us the ability to deviate some from the rules to make sure that we stayed in compliance, but to actually get our delegation selected, our chair of the delegation selected, and then attend our convention virtually. And as an aside, if you watched our Democratic National Convention last week, the transition from in-person to virtual was amazing to watch. It was seamless. It appeared almost as if we had planned that the entire time, and the Trump administration didn't destroy our plans because lack of planning and the inability to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. So we were a part of that transition. And as you can see, Terry Sewell delivered our roll call beautifully. And we had a delegation, and for the first time in the history of the state of Alabama, we elected an African-American woman, Representative Laura Hall, to lead our delegation. So we continue to make history. But again, we successfully navigated those waters. We, as a delegation, attended virtually, despite what Donald Trump says. It was a virtual convention. We attended virtually, and we completed that mission successfully. Now, we also have made history on several other fronts. And I'll just talk to you first about all the benchmarks that we weren't hitting before that we are beginning to hit now. As you remember, our party went months, maybe years, without any sort of email activity. Well, now I'm pretty sure you hear from us a lot. You're probably tired of hearing from us. You're probably tired of hearing us ask you for money, but that's what parties do. We email, we communicate, and we make sure that not only are we communicating a message, but we're creating a foundation for funding from now until the future. So we have a foundation to build from. So I am proud to say that as far as fundraising is concerned, we have several accounts. We have created a joint fundraising arrangement with the Biden campaign that currently has over $1 million in that account. We also created a joint fundraising arrangement with the Doug Jones campaign that has over $500,000 in it. We also, as a party, as a Democratic Party in both our federal and state accounts, we also have over $500,000 in those accounts. Now, that may sound like a lot, but as you know, running a PAC and trying to contribute to candidates and field a ground game, that is not a lot of money at all. You go through it pretty quick as you try to build a foundation and get out to vote, fundraise, contact your voters, and get them to the polls. So while we do have a good foundation to start from, we obviously always could use more. So that's my shameless plug and my shameless fundraising plug. So if you feel the need, please help us out. But anyway, we've also made history in several other regards too. When we first started, we had 7,000 emails at our disposal, 7,000. Those email addresses that we have, most of which were out of date, some didn't work. We did not have an ability to communicate with our base in Alabama. Well, I'm proud to say that now, as of today, we have over 50,000 emails in our database. And that's through work with several campaigns and several candidates. And that gives us access to 50,000 people that we can continue to ask for people to sign petitions, to contact their elected officials, to donate funding, to ask for volunteers, and so forth and so on. And that is huge. And not only do we have those email addresses, they are up to date and accurate. Also, one thing that I hear a lot about is our Twitter account. Now, let me tell you, I mean, it's, Twitter is our new normal now. It's a particular way you have to communicate. The snark, the sarcasm, the bite, all those things are necessary. And I think we do it better than anybody. To that end, we have turned our Twitter account into a very strong fundraising mechanism for us. Interestingly enough, as soon as Tommy Tuberville won the Republican nomination, we went on the assault. We went on the offensive. And the Democratic Party in Alabama is no longer just going to play defense. We're going to play a little offense too. And so within the hour, we had launched several things at the Tommy Tuberville campaign that resonated. And before we knew it, before the end of the night, we had gone viral and our tweets were being shared across the country. And it proves 2 points. One, if you say something, there are people who are willing to listen. But two, people really don't like Tommy Tuberville. I mean, it's amazing. But that turned into fundraising for us. So we actually raised money from different parts of the country because people saw us participating in the public debate, playing a little offense, showing a little confidence to inspire confidence. And now they know when they invest money in the Democratic Party, it will yield a return. Now, we started in November. We had a few thousand Twitter followers. Now we have 25,000. We also coordinate that with our Facebook page. So each are continuing to drive a message and a narrative that the Democrats have a message, a platform, and bottom line, we are here to play. On the opposing side of that, we're using the funding that we are creating to build a network to make sure that we can help not only Doug Jones win in November, but also help our candidates down ballot. We have fantastic candidates running for federal office. We have a fantastic candidate running for Public Service Commission, and we need to do whatever's necessary to help them. To that end, we are going to spend as much money as we can get our hands on our GOTV effort, our voter contact effort, to make sure that we take this unprecedented election and take every opportunity we have to be successful. That means when we're going to blitz the public and get them to the polls and tell them that every day is election day. Because of the pandemic, we have the unprecedented opportunity to vote absentee as soon as November, I think it's September the 9th hits. So when September 9th hits, you will see us out everywhere encouraging people to vote now. Get it over with. You know, if the Trump is assaulting the post office, eliminate that and go to the courthouse and vote. If you have other issues, you're worried about postage or finding a witness, if you can get to the courthouse, you eliminate those barriers and you get it done right then, and you can get your vote cast, and then you can go work and get somebody else to go do the same thing. And at this point, the Democratic Party has gone from having two people working in the office, one full-time, one part-time, to now we're going to have almost 30 to 40 people out there pounding the pavement, using all the resources that we have to try to get as many people to the polls as possible. So that's just really just a basic rundown of where we started and where we are. For our candidates, we have provided voter file for them for free. In the past, that was a significant cost for those who were struggling to raise money. So now they don't have to spend money on voter file. We're giving it to you, but we're also giving the county parties the same access. So they have the ability to access voter file. It's updated. Our information is accurate, and you get a better handle on who your voters are. And bottom line, there's energy out here. And one of the things I said in November, and the things I continue to say is, we're going to make being a Democrat in Alabama cool. We're going to make being a Democrat in Alabama, you have a message, you have a platform, and we're not afraid anymore to fill that public debate with our message. And interestingly enough, what you've seen in our public debate now is that our Republican colleagues, for the first time in a long time, are now being held to account. They have to start answering these questions that they didn't have to worry about answering in the past. I know everybody's familiar with that bogus poll that came out that showed Tommy Tuberville 17 or so points up over Doug. And I'll tell you, that's crap. And I'll tell you it's crap because if you look at your TV every morning, you see these lying ads that have been paid for from out-of-state dark money PACs that, trust me, if they thought there were 17 points up on Doug, they wouldn't be spending millions of dollars in Alabama to convince you otherwise. But the day that poll comes out, we go on the offensive. And instead of Tommy Tuberville being able to talk about, I'm ahead in this bogus poll, 17 points, he had to spend the entire day answering questions about him talking about $600 was too much money for additional unemployment benefits. And we fill that void with our followers, our other Democrats who jumped on him immediately and ruined that day for him. If you go look at his Twitter, account, all day long, people were sending him tweets citing what we said as a party, pointing out, I just got laid off. It's $600 too much for me. When you don't even live in Alabama, you make $800 pension a month off of us. You're living off of Ponzi scheme money, and the only time you lived in Alabama was when you were paid to do it. So, bottom line, us being active and engaged matters, and your Democratic Party now is active, engaged, up to date, and we are fundraising. And we are here to play. So with that, I think I'll open it up for whatever questions you may have. And again, this is, casual conversation, whatever you got, let's talk.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Representative England. That was a great rundown. I think you really hit the highlights, although I'm sure our audience still has plenty of questions that they cannot wait to ask you. And as a reminder to everyone, we will be providing an opportunity for those interested to pose your questions to Representative England directly. So
Yeah.
Go ahead and start submitting your questions through the Q&A box below on your screen. Then we will call on you. We will ask you to unmute yourself, and you will then be able to ask Representative England your question. We do ask that you please be quick and concise with your questions so that we can allow as many people as we can to ask questions in the time frame that we have. So with that, let's see. The first question we have here, Representative England, is going to be coming from Rylen.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Representative England. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hey.
How has the House Democratic Caucus been conducting meetings and ensuring all members' safety?
That's a great question. Throughout the crisis and that sham of a legislative session that we had, where essentially my Republican colleagues, especially in the Senate, were using the ability to hide in the State House to try to spend CARES Act money on a new State House and prisons. The Democratic Party actually began conducting webinars throughout the week that basically was a public meeting. You had the opportunity to hear what we were hearing from different people in the state, whether it be it could be Dr. Harris from the Alabama Department of Public Health, individuals from UAB, people from our Department of Labor, and we were having meetings with those folks virtually, so we could get information, and you could also get information about how to get unemployment, how to participate in PPP, also how to get tested even, and also telling us where we weren't testing people. So we use that as an opportunity to meet publicly, virtually, so that our constituents could also participate in those meetings with us, get the same information that we were getting, and ask those questions. We also have been meeting regularly virtually because, as you've seen, America has gone through a dramatic transition with George Floyd's murder, the pandemic going out of control. Our prisons and our pardons and parole system is in shambles. Our unemployment system is in shambles. I mean, if you name it, Alabama's just not doing it very well. So not only as a caucus, we've been meeting virtually and through conference calls, but we've also set up meetings with different agencies and organizations so they can begin telling us what they're doing in response to the George Floyd situation. If you've got loved ones in our prison system who have been subjected to just some of the worst conditions in not just in America, but in the world, and I'm not just making that up on my own, the Department of Justice says that our prison system is worse than the death penalty, essentially. We've been holding them accountable by having meetings with Jeff Dunn, our pardons and parole. We've been setting up meetings with them. So just trying to hold our appointed officials accountable through this pandemic to get answers. So we've been doing it virtually to make sure that people are safe, and also continuing to meet to make sure that we know we can be effective and affect change with the issues of the day. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, that was a really great question. Thanks, Rylen. It looks like our next question is going to be coming from Stuart.
Hello, Stuart.
Hi, Representative England. Thank you for being here tonight, and thanks especially for stepping up and providing real leadership for the Alabama Democratic Party. I feel like we've been in the desert for many, many years and finally feel like we're making some progress. So my question is about how we Democrats that live in North Alabama, how can we find a viable candidate to run against Mo Brooks in District 5, who's been such an embarrassment to the state for too many years?
Man, that's a fantastic question. And I, to this day, an area of our state like Huntsville that has so many well-educated people, it's just amazing to me that Mo Brooks continues to get reelected. And I think part of that is our ability to find a candidate, but also our ability to mount a competitive campaign. And again, you know, good candidates, people who would be good for office, need to be able to identify the appropriate infrastructure and know that there's some support out there to help get them elected. So we're going to spend that effort to find a candidate and give Mo a run for his money. And I don't want people to run despite the party anymore. I want people to run because they feel like they're going to be able to get some support from the Democratic Party, whether that be through GOTV, whether that be through messaging or something. So we can continue to demonstrate consistent competence, so they'll feel confident in their decision to actually run for office. So we're going to be hands-on in that effort to find a candidate to run in that race, as well as be very hands-on in finding candidates to run for the House of Representatives and our state Senate as well. Again, there are so many organizations out here that help train candidates, organizations like Emerge and many others that give us a very fertile ground for candidates that we don't really have to go and look and search. The process is somebody who's already been trained, ready to go, and ready to actually engage in a competitive campaign. So I hear you. Mo Brooks needs to go badly, and we're going to work on an effort to help find a candidate to get rid of it.
Well, as someone who lives in the 5th district, I have to second and third and fourth that motion. Mo's got to go.
Yes.
Oh, goodness. Okay, looks like our next question is coming from Nicholas.
Hey, how you doing, Representative England? Thank you so much for the opportunity to ask this question. With Alabama mostly voting in down midterm years, we don't really have the gravitas of having a presidential campaign to help us get people elected to the state legislature in down ballot races. Is there any talk or message of actually getting rid of the straight ticket voting in Alabama to help have a more engaged electorate?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Yes, unfortunately, that would require the party in charge, whether it be Republican or Democrat, to give up what maintains their majority. As you know, and as we've seen in Alabama over the last 10 so years, especially, that qualifications don't matter. You just put an R by your name and show up on election day and you win. That trend has been much more dramatic and impactful recently, especially, which turned a Democratic supermajority into a Democratic superminority overnight 10 years ago. So there is some discussion about that. There is some effort being put into that, but the likelihood that the Republicans would agree to creating an opportunity where a more informed voter could send some of them home is slim to none. They, again, as you've seen, if you just look at the Republican National Convention, they capitalize off of misinformation, ignorance, and lies. So if you can just convince somebody and scare them into voting straight ticket to maintain a status quo that does not serve their best interest, the Republicans will fight tooth and nail to make sure that that does not change. But that's a great question, and it's something that not only are we going to have to deal with in the future, but we're going to have to deal with in November, which is why we have to be intentional in our efforts to get people to split their tickets and to do it now.
Yeah, that is, I know that's something that we talk about a lot, how just like you said, putting an R by your name and just showing up sometimes qualifies you, which is really upsetting, especially when we have really great people that are running as Democrats. So.
Well, what's unfortunate is right now we are allowing Republican candidates to essentially hide in plain sight. Mm-hmm. And like, it's what somewhat hilarious had happened a couple of weeks ago. Republicans leadership wrote a letter to the Presidential Election Commission or whatever it is, asking for an additional debate because, you know, they don't want Joe Biden hiding in a bunker and avoiding debates. Meanwhile, they won't even ask the guy that's in their state to come out of his bunker in Florida, by the way, to come and debate Doug, because they know that if we're not talking about football, Tommy ain't got much else to offer.
Well, and even if we're talking about football sometimes, depending on who you root for.
Right.
All right, it looks like our next question is coming from Tamara.
Hi, Representative England. How are you this evening?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. When do you anticipate the coordinated campaign for Alabama to actually start? Other states have been doing it for months. I have been making phone calls into other states' Democratic parties. I've been hosting events for other states' Democratic parties. When do you anticipate our coordinated campaign will be up and running?
It actually is up and running. Thank you for that question, by the way, but it actually is up and running. We are actually hiring people. By the end of the week, we'll have over 20 organizers on the ground moving, and there will be actual tangible evidence of the work that is being done very soon. You know, we have had to adjust expectations based on fundraising expectations, and that process is being done in real time, unfortunately. But our coordinated campaign we have hired several people to run it, and it is currently coordinating. I guess that's a bad way to put it, but it is. We have reached out to several people, and we have a plan in place, and we are beginning to execute it. Unfortunately, other states have had the ability of having a foundation to work from. We had to build that foundation and then work from the foundation we are building. So we are trying to live in the house and build it at the same time, which can be difficult, but we are doing it, and I'm proud of the effort that we have so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, social media alone has just leaps and bounds elevated. So that's been really great to see. All right, looks like our next question is coming from Paula.
Hi, thank you so much. This has been so informative. My question is, you mentioned going to the courthouse to vote. I've been in touch with the state Secretary of State's office, and all I get is just an email with a form to download, get signatures, blah, blah, blah. Can I go and actually do that at the courthouse?
Absolutely. Great question. And part of our coordinated campaign effort will be an explanation of how to do those things in both ways, what it takes to vote absentee by mail and what it takes to vote absentee in person. And yes, you can go take your ID to your voter absentee manager in whatever courthouse county you live in and vote absentee in person. You can request your ballot and not mail it in. You can actually go take it to them. And that is going to be the preferred method that we're going to encourage and show people how to do as many times as we can. Again, every day will be election day. And we are going to push that message and explain how to get it done.
That's great. And I think that is a part of it too, is just educating people on the different ways that they can vote before election day if they're able to.
Yes.
So I think that's great that you guys are thinking about that already. Looks like we have a question from Anonymous, so I will read it for them. Their question is, how is the state party specifically assisting the various county party organizations?
Great question. First, one of the things that we ran into and are still running into is that there are some counties that are not organized. Some counties don't have chairs, some counties don't have vice chairs and don't meet regularly. So we had to spend several weeks initially trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again and finding people in different areas who are willing to volunteer and create a county party. The second thing that we have done is we have begun communicating, all the way from branding to messaging. So I don't know if you've noticed, but some county parties have adopted the new brand. So their slogan, not their slogan, but their insignia matches the parties. That was an intentional effort so we can create some synergy. But we're also using our social media presence and our emails and so forth to continue to coordinate not only just appearance, but in substantive message as well. So also, as from years past, we have given county parties access to Vote Builder for free. So again, that means that county party can use that tool to go out, canvass, contact voters, and make sure we get them to the polls. And as our efforts continue and we expand our foundation and additional employees are in place, those folks will be sent to different regions of the state to begin coordinating the efforts of every county party in those particular regions. So the party itself has hired people to put them on the ground. We've conducted trainings to make sure that people understand how to do certain things, and also make sure that we can coordinate our efforts. And I think if you compare where we were not even a year ago to where we are now, we have made a lot of progress.
Absolutely. Looks like our next question is coming from Wendy, but she has asked if I would read it. I think she's having microphone issues. So
Okay.
Wendy McGee asks, what are the plans for the Alabama Democratic Party to recruit and mentor future candidates to run throughout the state?
Great question. We're going to first lean on our partnerships. I've had several conversations with Emerge, and we have pledged to work together to create a way to use the database and the people that they train to make meaningful candidates in our upcoming races. That's first. Secondly, we are intentional in our efforts first to identify candidates and then to train them. That has been the major problem that we've had in the past, is that there will be good, well-meaning people, but they weren't exactly well-versed on how to run a campaign. So the party will engage intentional efforts in training those individuals that we've identified or that have identified themselves and said that they are interested in being a candidate for the legislature or for any statewide office. And then the party will have the ability to be sort of a clearinghouse, meaning that if you've got questions about fundraising, questions about what you can and cannot do with campaign money, what you can, how much money you can take or who you can take it from, or just the basics on, where do I file my forms? Or something as basic as having a notary in the office when you go turn in your form so you don't have to run to a bank down the street like I had to when I qualified to run for State House. Something as basic as that. So again, that's how we're going to assist the candidates, providing a foundation from which they can grow and be successful.
That's wonderful. I mean, even what you said just with the paperwork aspect, someone may be incredibly qualified to run, but just some of these small basic things that they don't know, you don't know what you don't know. And I think that that's really great that the party's willing to.
Yeah, there are several things that happen at the very beginning of the process that if you don't do them correctly, could not only eliminate you from the process, but also potentially get you in some criminal trouble.
Yes.
So it's good to be able to call the office and say, hey, I've got my form, what do I need to do? And we say, well, within 5 days, you need to have your ethics form filed and your campaign committee set up, and this is how you do it.
Absolutely. That's so great to hear. All right, well, it looks like our next question is going to be from Carl.
Yes, are there any plans to have the SDC meet even virtually?
Yes. So that's a great question, Carla. Thank you for that. Over the summer, we were supposed to have several meetings to elect members, to fill vacancies, to elect the delegation, and all these wonderful things that just got upended by the pandemic. And unlike our Republican colleagues, we listen to doctors and follow science. And over the summer, it just wasn't a very good idea for us to put a bunch of people in a room together and try to meet. So we did the basics. We've had a couple of executive board meetings so we can make sure that the fundamentals were covered, that the hires were cleared. But yes, there is a plan in the future, but it probably won't happen anytime soon because now we're in election. We're in the middle of an election. But as soon as we're able, as soon as this election cycle is done, we will be meeting a lot, probably more than you want, because we've got a lot of work to do. And again, I appreciate that question, Carl. It's an issue that we've talked about on several occasions, and we need to meet. We've got some real work to do. We've got some fences to mend and some bridges to rebuild. And I think the only way to do that is to sit in a room together and fight it out. And one thing Democrats don't have a problem doing is fighting it out.
Well, I don't know if there's a truer statement than that, for better or for worse. All right, looks like our next question is going to be coming from Mandy.
Hello. Hey. On the state level, what is your biggest concern that you have witnessed Republicans doing that will have a negative impact on Alabama?
Whew. How much time do we have? And I'm assuming you're asking me that question from my representative role. If that is the question, if that's the case, I think the biggest threat, the biggest issue is just the fundamental mismanagement of state government across the board. And honestly, I said this earlier and I mean it. If you can identify an area that state government that Alabama does well, I will give you my paycheck. Now, I won't tell you that I don't get a paycheck from the Democratic Party, so it won't be much. But the point I'm trying to make here is if you talk about public health, we struggle. If you talk about mental health, we struggle. If you talk about the Department of Corrections, we're struggling. If you're talking about the Bureau of Pardons and Paroles, it's an absolute mess. If you're talking about the Department of Labor, you saw a line outside of the building with our inability to manage the unemployment fund. And there are people today who are still waiting on unemployment. If you talk about our Department of Public Health and our management of the coronavirus crisis, as you can see, it's been a problem. So I think fundamentally, it's our inability to manage state government. And it has basically undermined all of our efforts across the board to improve things such as public health, education, and many other areas of political relationships in the state of Alabama.
I mean, you said, I mean, what do I say to that? Okay, it looks like we have another question from Nicholas. Are you there, Nicholas?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much again. I really do appreciate having the opportunity to ask this question.
Yeah.
But looking into the future, I know I may be looking down the road some, but do you see Alabama as becoming a battleground state nationally? And if so, what do you think needs to be done to make that happen?
I do, actually. And again, great question. I do. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. And as you can see, the numbers from our neighbors, Georgia, for example, has become a battleground state. Mississippi had a Senate candidate who almost got within the margin at one point. We have a blue governor in Louisiana and in Kentucky. If you go to South Carolina, Jamie Harrison has Lindsey Graham in a dead heat. So there are indicators there that it signal a South that is emerging. Now, we are going to have to figure out a way to capture that energy and translate that into elections and victories. Now, it's going to require an intentional effort on our part. That doesn't necessarily mean that we go and we spend money everywhere, but we identify those areas where our voters are growing. And I'll just go back to our latest election cycle. Now, we lost. There's no question about that. But if you look at the numbers, we had some opportunities there that just a little bit more organization and support could have made a difference. For example, Lisa, and up in your area, Chad Young and Andrew Sorrells was a fantastic race that was Democrat lost by less than 1,000 votes. The Northwest quadrant of Alabama has traditionally been a Democratic stronghold. Now, there are reasons why we lost that, because the Democratic Party for hundreds of years was in the supermajority, and we kind of got drunk and fat on power and got lazy and let identity politics take over party platform. So many of our older politicians, any of our older elected officials decided that they would better run as individuals than acknowledge that they were publicly Democrats, and that eventually got us beat badly. But that was an opportunity. We see our numbers growing around the city of Birmingham in suburbs where we created, our voters are giving us opportunities to be competitive. The suburbs around Mobile and also Montgomery. We are seeing opportunities there. And it's going to have to start off of that I-65 corridor and build off of it. Now, we have a very important redistricting effort coming up here next year. And I think that's where it's going to start. We're going to have to make sure that we protect what we have and create opportunities on our maps for expansion.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is a reminder, if you haven't done your census yet, and you should have.
Please do.
Please do.
Yes, quickly.
Yesterday, please. It looks like we have a question from Mr. David Person.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Thanks for joining us tonight, Chris. I wanted to know if you could give us an update on where the state party stands in its relationship with the Alabama Democratic Conference and Joe Reed.
It's slowly improving, I guess. There has been a couple of letters that Dr. Reed has written and sent out that indicate some willingness to work together to elect Doug Jones and be successful down ballot. So there is some hope there, and I believe that when we have a common cause, we can unify around that. But I'm not going to lie to you. There's some work that needs to be done. And I think part of that work requires us to take our new members and give them a real good introduction to the history of the Democratic Party, the struggles that created the perception that we are divided, and then have those two entities speaking face to face to begin to work out our differences. And listen, we didn't get to this condition overnight. I wasn't not going to deny that. My history in this goes back into the day I was elected in 2006, where Dr. Reed and ADC actually opposed my election when I ran through the SDEC to take the appointment because my predecessor could not fulfill the nomination. So I have a history with this, but you're probably aware my history doesn't just stop there. My dad actually, back in the 80s, was one of the founding members of the New South Coalition when they split from the Alabama Democratic Conference. So this isn't just a 2-year difference. I mean, this has been going on for a while, and I think your question goes to the point now that it's time to fix that. It's time to end that. And whether it's me that's capable of doing that or the next person, if I can't do it, I'm happy to be the person that started the process. Again, because it's in order for us to be truly successful in elections beyond 2020, 2022, and in the future, those two factions have to be not only in the same room together, but also working together. There has been some progress there, but I can't say it's necessarily intentional. It's more or less that we've got a ways to run and we got some candidates to support. And honestly, the greatest threat to democracy that we have ever seen, Donald Trump, needs to be removed from office. And in order to protect all the rights that we have, we need a Senate, a Democratic Senate, so we can put some justices on the bench that protects the things that we've struggled for and won over the last decades, over the last 100 years, actually. So,
yeah, I would have to agree with all of that, and I think most people would too. Now it looks like this is going to be our last question for the evening, and that's going to be from Dawn.
Hey, Dawn.
Hi, Chris. I'm also SDEC and
Yes.
am Birmingham, Jefferson County, but
Ooh.
I want to know, and I have a lot of people that want to know, particular strategies that we're using right now to move our ticket from Biden to Jones, boots on the ground kind of strategy. People want to be active and they want to be working.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Tell me.
Well, first, those that want to be active, and I can't believe I did not say this before. Those that want to be active need to go look at our new website, and there are and enter in your information. We're building a volunteer database that we could not do in past that we're doing now. So if you're ready to work and you want to be active, go to our Democratic website, aldemocrats.org. Put your information in there, and we are building that database, so we will be calling you to work. That's the first thing. But secondly, we are building our GOTV team as we speak. We are meeting across the state, and we have a plan, and that plan is to aggressively go after the voters that we can identify now to get them to the polls early and continue to encourage them to go cast their absentee ballot the first day you can. Again, it's hashtag every day is election day, okay? And our strategy is to identify those voters that we can get out early to go do it in person and create chaos where people see us voting every day and we motivate others to do the same thing. So once we get you out of the way, once you go and you cast your vote, then you go and you get somebody else to go do theirs too. And despite this tragic situation that we're in with this pandemic, and I want everybody to remember that when you're forced to go to a courthouse in September or October and vote, you aren't doing that because you necessarily want to. You are forced to do that because you now have to choose between your well-being and your right to vote. And it did not have to be that way. And the only way to change the trajectory is to get those folks out of office. So our message will be, every day is election day. Go cast your vote now and make sure you get your ID, mask up, go and vote, and then go back and find somebody else to do the same. And meanwhile, we're going to continue with our efforts to put people on the ground to encourage that same conduct, behavior, action all over the state of Alabama. And I think we should use the opportunity afforded to us by the pandemic to get our voters to the polls and run our numbers up.
Absolutely. So everyone, what's the big takeaway? Every day is election day.
That's right. You'll see it. I'm telling you, you're going to see a lot of that soon, very, very soon. You're going to get tired. You're going to get tired of it.
No, I think it's good. You got to keep pushing that message because it's a good one. Well, thank you again so much, Representative England, for being here with us tonight. This was so great and so informative. And thank you to everyone who joined us tonight and for your wonderful questions. As Representative England just said a moment ago, check out their social, the new website, all their social media links. We actually have them all linked in the chat box for those who want to go look at it there. We also have a link to donate. Again, this is a free event that we're doing, but if you believe in the cause and you want to support Democrats up and down the ballot across the state, please consider donating. Every dollar goes towards helping Democrats in Alabama, and as Representative England needs, we need that more than ever now.
Yes.
And so we will be taking a short hiatus from our Synergy Speaker Series, but we will return with some more incredible speakers soon. So in the meantime, be sure to follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter to be the first to know about events like this and other opportunities, and also make sure again to follow Alabama Democrats on all their social media platforms, sign up to get involved. We all have a part to do, so get plugged in. And thank you all again, and we hope to see you soon.